Notoriously, you tell me you don't know anything about it, anything about
Guilty.
Yeah, but I bet you've learned so much, so fast, and way faster than you could have learned any other way. We're going to do a bit of a different episode today. Tim and I are going to dive deep on how we're actually using AI in our businesses today. Before we jump into this conversation, a quick word from our amazing sponsor, PF Partners. If you haven't already checked them out, they're an ag tech consulting firm, so be sure to check them out. Hey guys, quick message from our sponsor, PF Partners. Growing your business in the agriculture space in 2025 is maybe harder than it's ever been. Investor funding has dried up, growers have tighter budgets than ever, and overall, it's just hard to go to market. PF Partners, a consulting firm with over a decade of experience scaling successful ad tech solutions globally, has just launched a new webinar on optimizing go-to-market strategies in the agribusiness space. It shows you what's changing in the market, exactly how to deal with it. Everything is backed by research, and it's about go-to-market plays in the ag sector that you can use tomorrow. So if you're ready to turn your go-to-market efforts into results, go to themodernacre.com/PFP or text modern to 55444 to download the webinar for free. That's themodernacre.com/PFP or text modern to 55444.
Ty, super excited to get into this. We've been using AI tools, I think, a lot over the past year, and feels like every month there's some kind of step change, new model, new tool to play with. We've been playing around with this for the farm, for Polaris, for AgList, for how we're thinking about building the podcast and other ideas we have. So it's going to be awesome just to dive into each of these and talk about kind of the tools that we're using and what we're learning.
All right, so we're going to try to be as helpful as possible in this episode and really share all the details of how we're using AI. And I think we'll be as transparent as possible and as realistic as possible of what works, what doesn't work, what's not quite there, right? So Tim, I think it would be most helpful to start with, you guessed it, ChatGPT. I think let's start there, because I think that's the lowest barrier of entry, in my opinion, is if you don't have a ChatGPT account, what are you doing, right? Like, I think this is where people need to start. This is the gateway drug to AI.
Totally. Yeah, that's definitely the biggest in the space. It's the Google of AI interfaces in terms of like the search chat functionality. They've evolved their scope of services, different models, so we can kind of dig into that on kind of how we're using it. I use this every day, Ty. I have the app on my phone. I have it on my web browser, and I'm starting to use this more than Google just for like basic stuff. I feel like it just gets straight to the point of what you're looking to ask, quick responses and stuff that you want to dive deep and do like a deep research on. I use this every day personally and professionally on stuff we're working on.
Okay, so Tim, I want to go through a few examples of how we're using this specifically, but I'm going to give a kind of an overview of the different models because this is confusing to people, right? So Tim and I have the $20 a month ChatGPT plan, and this is really all you need to get started, and it has plenty of horsepower behind it. There's really 4 models that you can use, and what does that mean? It just means the way they process information is different. The 4 models are, number 1, GPT-4o. This is the quickest model. So if you're looking when I'm looking, Tim, for just a simple answer, a quick answer, GPT-4o is the way to go. And basically it has just this database and archive of information that it can just quickly get to the point, answer your question in a really seamless way. So this is, your typical Google searches or things like that. That's what I think you should start putting into GPT-4o. The next one is O3, and this is advanced reasoning. So this actually, it takes your question and thinks about it, right? So it takes longer because it's actually trying to understand what is the user asking, what information are they looking for, and then it will search the internet and scrape multiple websites, and it can think for 10 seconds or can think for 5 minutes to answer your question. So I'm using this more and more frequently, Tim, because I just want the most robust answer. The third model is O4 Mini. This is kind of like a cross between the first two. It does reason, but it's faster. So it's probably not doing as advanced reasoning as the second O3. But so I use this, Tim, when I want a little bit of thinking, but it doesn't have, I don't want it to take, 5 minutes. And then the last model is O4 Mini High. They need to change the names of these, Tim. These ones I don't use a ton, but are for more coding and visual reasoning. So 4 models, really pay the $20, start playing around with it. So Tim, why don't you give us a few examples of, recent queries that you've done of things that you're looking for?
Yeah, so like from the farm standpoint, I've been using this a lot for interpreting like soil tests, sap analysis, water testing results, like different kind of reports that we're getting on the farm as a way to kind of synthesize that and like get feedback and interpret those before we have to wait for an agronomist if it's technical stuff that I don't really understand. Like we got some, pre-season soil sampling done, and I fed that all to GPT, used 4.0 to do, O3 to do the deep research, and really got a robust breakdown of really how to interpret these results. And kind of interesting, I said, we're planting tomatoes in this field. Like what kind of recommendations could you give kind of on our baseline soil? And it kind of gives you this answer. And then interesting, you can kind of give it feedback of like, this is kind of a vanilla, like straight from the UC, like bread and butter, more conventional fertility plan. Like if you're John Kemp for a regenerative agronomist, like how would you think about these results? And it kind of thinks about that and gives you a different interpretation of the same results. So that's how we've been using it primarily on the farm, interpreting this kind of stuff. In the future, I could see it like being much more robust, like tapping into kind of our farm management software and like field, giving it, full level field information and crops, and kind of using the farm management tracker that we have, Ty, that is our plant dates, our crops, like all these different inputs, feeding it that information to be able to speak to it about the operation. This is probably like a solution for more of like a software company that comes along that's able to kind of create the next version of farm management software and kind of building these tools. There's a lot of these companies out there, so I'm sure they're already thinking along these lines as making it easier with AI to interpret information.
Yeah, I have two thoughts on that. One is definitely think this is a big opportunity for someone. Someone should build this, because I think one of the downsides of AI is sometimes it doesn't remember everything from past conversations, right? So it's annoying sometimes to have to re-deliver assumptions, right? It would be awesome to have a tool where you could just lay out, here's my farm, here are the fields, here's what we're growing in each of them, here's the historical information, and then it has that, database to pull from that it remembers. And so that's an opportunity for what a lot of people are calling AI wrappers, right? It's this idea of make a AI tool for a specific use case. And in this case, it would be farm management software. So I think that's probably $1 million idea right there. But I think that's one thing that the AI is going to get better at. And maybe ChatGPT will just solve this, but just kind of remembering all of that context. I've seen sometimes it remembers, sometimes it doesn't. Have you had that experience?
I've had that experience, and like, yeah, I would love to be able to connect it to like our Google Drive. We keep a lot of our like farm information in a Google Drive. The challenge there is like we create so many like scratch pads of like, we'll just create a sheet. You and me we'll be like brainstorming on something that's like a scratch pad. It's not fully baked. It's like a sheet that gets replaced that we just kind of like do away with. And so like, that's kind of my concern, is like a lot of information in Google Drive is like no longer up to date. And we don't want like the AI like thinking that's a fact. So it's really hard to kind of like wrap my head around that piece of like getting to that spot.
My other thought on your kind of Nest Farms use case is you learn so much faster with AI. Like I have learned so much more about my business, Polaris, because I've been able to ask questions, get feedback, do deep research on a topic. It accelerates your learning. And Tim, I bet that's the case for you. You're not an agronomist. You notoriously, you tell me you don't know anything about it.
Guilty.
Yeah, but I bet you've learned so much, so fast, and way faster than you could have learned any other way by putting in these reports and say, like, tell me about this. Oh, what does this mean? Why is this important? It just scales your learning capability faster than any other way. Have you found that?
Totally. Yeah, like the way that it synthesizes information and kind of gives you, just quick tables to like interpret like this nutrient versus this, what's the percent changed, like just super quick, handy information that like when I first started doing this, I sent it to Dad and Derek on the So Reports, and Dad's like, "Where did you get this?" I'm like, "ChatGPT." Just like did it really quickly. It was like, yeah, something that like if we sat down to try to interpret this, it would be a a multi-day project to kind of get the output that we got in a couple minutes.
All right, so that's how you're using it for Nest Farms. I'm going to talk a little bit now, Tim, about how I'm using it for Polaris. I just alluded to it. I've been getting up to speed with this market. Polaris is a complex business. It's a niche business. It's in the energy markets, right? And I'm learning more and more every day. And it has so vastly accelerated my learning in these different areas. And a key tool that I use within ChatGPT is called deep research. So we talked about the 4 models. There's kind of this additional tool or feature within ChatGPT called deep research. And this essentially does that deep reasoning, but like 10x. And it will go super, super deep on a topic. And I'm not joking. You can come up with like McKinsey level reports about topics using deep research. And the results are really, really mind-blowing. And I just did one on IoT adoption on farms. Essentially, how is IoT devices on farm scaling? What's adoption look like? And it put together just an amazing report. It cites all the information. When you do deep research, it'll cite the articles and the reference all of them into this report. You can export that report to a PDF. It is wild. So, like, one obvious takeaway from this episode, if you don't have ChatGPT, go get it, $20, and do a deep research on a topic for your business that you don't fully understand, or you just want to understand one particular metric or one thing about the market size, or how does this work with utilities or farmers. Do it once, and I think your mind will be blown. And I've been using, Tim, I think I use deep research multiple times a day now. And we talked to Carl Lippert, a friend of the pod, recently, and he talked about this idea of like, you should always have AI be working for you when you're doing something else. Like when you go grab lunch or you go on a walk, just initiate a deep research. A lot of times it'll take 5 to 30 minutes to do deep research. Just go initiate that and then go have your lunch. And then when you come back, boom, you have a McKinsey level report for your viewing pleasure. So deep research, I've been using it so much, Tim.
Ty, let's talk about how we're using it personally. I think there's like a lot of use cases in business, but also like personally, like one thing I've been like super into is you and I both did Function Health recently. You get all these interesting biomarkers back, these insights, and you can feed all that to ChatGPT and get really awesome insights on like breaking down your results. I've been using a lot from a health perspective. Like, here's all my results from Function Health. Here's kind of my current diet. Here's my current schedule when I wake up, when I go to sleep, my workout routine, supplements. And it synthesizes all of that and gives you like really awesome results on kind of like, I had to put together a meal plan. I said, here's the supplements I'm taking. Like, am I taking this in the right order? Like, give me basically a schedule on when I should be taking something to have the max benefit, like on an empty stomach, or take this 30 minutes before you eat. It's just awesome to be able to like maximize what you're doing from a health perspective.
One fun way that I'm using it personally, Tim, we're taking a summer vacation and we'll be in London, and we're going to visit the British National Museum. Ton of artwork there. And I asked ChatGPT of, hey, what are like the top pieces of artwork at the British Museum? It gives me here's the top like 10 must-sees. And then I'll go back and forth with it and say, well, I have my daughters with me. Like, what would be interesting for them to see? What are some interesting ones for them to see? What are historically significant? And I kind of go back and forth and I iterate this list. And then I come up with this just amazing list of, I think it's 14 pieces of artwork from this museum that now I'm going to take my girls on a scavenger hunt in the museum. Because like you go to a museum, right? And you're like, you just kind of look at everything. You don't know what anything is. It's like not very like interesting or compelling. But now we have this amazing list. We have the context for each, who the painter is, why it's important, why it's popular. And we're going to have this experience that we wouldn't otherwise had. And I'm like, why haven't I been doing this for every museum? And it's because it's like would take too long to figure it out. And now I could do this in literally a matter of like 10 minutes, put together this awesome list. So that was one personal way I used it, I'm super excited.
That's an awesome use case. Yeah, one thing that ChatGPT also has is image creation. So like we've been messing around with this, Ty, about like just making images for Aglist or Polaris and messing around with it. Like this came out a couple months back. You were giving me a hard time like every evening when we'd be like, put the kids down. I would just send you just random ridiculous images that I generated off ChatGPT, and you're just like, this is a great use of your time. But it's starting to get better. But also like I think that's still like an area that's going to be much improved, where sometimes you'll give it prompts and it'll be like good, and like the more you like prompt it to get better, it like gets worse. So I've seen like some of that, just kind of like the more you try to prompt it, the more they deteriorate. But I think an interesting use case as well.
Yeah, well, you did a ton for the farmer mode hats, right?
Yeah.
Like we had, we didn't have the time or money to do professional product shots for the hats, right? AI can do it in like a minute. And yeah, it's not perfect, but it's the fact that it's kind of novel, unique, and funny makes it interesting. And so you did a ton of farmer mode image creations. We've been doing them for different LinkedIn posts. By the way, do you guys have your farmer mode hat? Farmermode.com. Go grab a farmer mode hat before they're gone today. Check them out, farmermode.com. Just had to squeeze that in there. All right, Tim, with our remaining time here, I want to talk about other tools we're using and kind of what we're seeing as interesting. So I'll start, since we were just on image creation with ChatGPT, I've been playing around with video creation, which is absolutely wild. So I put together, over the course of a weekend, Tim, I put together Aglist's first commercial. And gotta say, it was pretty fire. And how I did this was using Gemini. So Gemini is Google's tool. They just recently came out with a video generator tool that allows you basically to put in a prompt and it's going to deliver you an 8-second video. And it's expensive because you got to imagine the computing power to put together these videos are quite resource heavy. So I signed up for the pro plan, which I think, what was it, like $200 a month or something, Tim, but allowed me to generate a lot of videos. And basically what I did is I started in ChatGPT. I played around with like, hey, what would be some fun commercial ideas for Aglist? And so ChatGPT gives me 5 ideas. And then I'm like, I like number 1 the best, but I want to change this, and this. And so I kind of go back and forth to figure out like the script with ChatGPT. And then I ask ChatGPT to put together a prompt that I can put into Gemini that will give it, because the more details you provide for the video, the better outcome you're going to get. So I had ChatGPT essentially build that all for me. And because you have 8-second clips, I have to combine them together, putting these scenes together to make it work, right? And so I went back and forth, and this took me some time over the weekend, right? I think I generated 20 to 30 8-second clips to come up with the 3 that I needed to stitch together for the commercial. But I couldn't believe it. Like the amount of time and cost it would be to put together like this realistic commercial. I got it for $200 that to do it otherwise would have been 10-20 grand, right? Like to have this professional of a video, and I did it in a weekend. So that was pretty wild. And I think we're just getting started, but it definitely took a lot of iteration.
Yeah, super funny to see, and it's like cool for like Aglist and the Modern Acre, like in farmer mode we can be a little bit silly and like not as polished, and like the video is hilarious. You could obviously tell it's AI. It's like kind of quirky, but like that's what makes it fun and cool. And I think engaging, if you have this like just super put together like professional commercial, like less funny, but the fact that it's like put together with AI, I think it like makes it more exciting and engaging.
Yeah, and that was part of my prompt, was like, I want it to feel like an SNL skit or something, right? Like you kind of prompt it where you want it to be goofy. It's not like pretending to be anything it's not. So Aglist.com, check it out. And it's worth mentioning, Tim, we just did launch Aglist AI. This is great, on topic. Aglist now has an agronomist AI. So you can talk to, Tim, I don't know why you're talking to ChatGPT about your agronomy problems. You need to start talking to Aglist AI. So you guys check that out. That AI is trained specifically on agronomy and on the product information on Aglist for biologicals. So check that out. All right, Tim, what other tools are you using?
There's some tools I'm using, but like I think what's also interesting, and there's a lot of software companies that we already like work with that are building their own internal AI tools. Like we use Xero for our accounting software on the farm, and they're like really building out just like a lot of AI functionality within tools you already use. Bill.com is another one that we use for all of our payables, and it's been interesting to see how those products have evolved the past couple months, where there's just a lot more easier functionality. Like on Bill.com, on the dashboard that we have, there's a way to kind of look at your spend and like just do really quick searches that are all kind of like powered by AI. So I think that's really cool. If like software that you're already using, and like every company right now is thinking about how they can incorporate AI into their products and platforms. And like as a user of these, I've seen the benefit where I don't have to do a bunch of reporting that used to take a lot of time, where I could just do it within a couple clicks or a couple quick searches on a dashboard for these companies. Another one that I've been using, Ty, is called Replit. So this is similar to ChatGPT, but more for like building products, where you can basically give it a prompt and build an app or build a website. And so I've been playing around with this. Haven't shipped any product out of that, but I've been just kind of playing right now, trying to learn. And it's a little bit more of a learning curve than ChatGPT, where with Replit, you have kind of a two-sided interface. On the left side, you are basically prompting, giving it cues. On the right side, you could see how Replit is actually coding in real time what you're prompting it to do. So I've used this I was testing around when we were building the farmer mode landing page of like, should I do it here? And you're like, actually, I already know how to do that quite easy, so don't mess around with it. We have a couple other ideas that we're working on, like, can you create an online directory or like other types of products using these no-code tools? So playing around with it, I haven't like found it to be perfect, where I have a similar experience like I was talking about, where sometimes the output gets like degraded over time. And like the more I try to prompt it and like fine tune things, it like kind of falls apart a little bit. So still trying to figure out that. I know it's a tool a lot of people use, so still working on that one.
Yeah, and Replit as a business is one of the highest valuations in the space. There's a lot of momentum behind the Replit product. Tim, as we wrap up here, the other topic I want to talk about is this idea of AI agents. So agents, it's kind of like this catch-all term, but it's the idea of an AI that can go run a task in the background for you. And a tool I've been using for this is Manus, Manus. I've noticed that Manus is kind of better at some of these more advanced, like repetitive tasks. If you're having it research, 100 companies or things like that, where it has to go and do, a task for over the course of an hour or something. So Manus AI I've been playing with, it's pretty intuitive, as acting as kind of like this agent that's working in the background for you. And one that I haven't played around with a lot, but I've heard a lot of positive things around, is Lindy AI. So Lindy is essentially, if you know Zapier, it's the idea of kind of like making workflow automations, has been around forever, like connecting your Gmail to Notion or something like that. Lindy AI is essentially automations for AI. So you can build agents to basically do tasks. So if in the idea of Gmail and Notion, you can have it scrape your email with a certain task of summarize all my emails over the past 7 days, and then upload it to a Notion app or a Notion note or something like that. Lindy, you can build automation. So if you have experience with Zapier, Lindy is like a really cool feature. I'm not there. I don't understand the automation workflows as good as others, but that's another one I've heard a lot about.
Ty, I think that's a good place to wrap it. I think we've been playing around with AI on the daily. I feel like we're still at the tip of the iceberg. Every week there's a new tool to play around with. We're still trying to wrap our heads around it. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. A little bit of a different one for us, just diving deep onto a topic. Let us know if you like it, and we'll be back with more of these kind of episodes. Thanks for listening.